Hey everyone, welcome to Painted. I am not skipping today's live. I think some of you might have seen my personal post because I'm just the most graceful gazelle, and I took a tumble and messed up my hand a little bit, but I did practice before, so my hand will work for stenciling, so we can go on with our live today. I'm very excited about that. Now, I am in the process of making sure I can read again off of my iPad like I did last week, because that worked really well. I was able to see your questions without having to kind of peer up under things. So give me just a second to go to my page on my iPad and see if I can get this to show me live so I can see. It's showing something strange. Let me see what I got down further. Oh, that's weird. It's showing, what the heck is that showing? There we go. Showing something else and I couldn't figure out what it was. And now it's showing me frozen. There we go, I got it. Now let me just turn the volume down so you don't have to hear me talk to myself. There we go. And I'll just see the questions as they come up. And that'll work just fine, I think. I hope. I certainly hope it works. Okay. Excuse me. Choking myself. Just iced tea. Could be more fun. I wanted to cover with everybody a couple events coming up. Once again, I'm teaching. I'm sure I announced this in my last video, but I want to make sure I do it this time. I am teaching in person, live and in person, at the Faux Finish School in Louisville, Kentucky, September 24th through 28th. I kind of gave myself crib notes. September 24th through 28th, teaching Timeless Creations. That is a 30 finish, 5-day class with a unique professional practice dinner and roundtable so that we can help all of you who are interested in the business improve your business practices, not just your finishes. Hey Gina, nice to see you. Yay, people are showing up. Oh, Sonia, thank you. I love stencils too, and we're going to get to it just a second as soon as I finish my announcements. My next announcement is I will be teaching a 3-day, I think it's 25 or 26 finish, furniture finishing class also at the Faux Finish School in Louisville, Kentucky. And that everything I do can be applied to cabinets as well as furniture. It's a very cool class, and we teach you prep to top coat so you don't miss anything. And the last classes I'm teaching at IDOL, which is International Decorative Artisans League. Hey Pam, nice to see you. I will be teaching at the International Decorative Artisans League Convention in Greensboro, North Carolina. 1-day furniture finishing class on October 21st. It's a IDOL, for those who don't know, is a organization designed just specifically for decorative artisans, not just walls, but furniture and everything else that you can come up with. And I'm teaching a 1-day furniture introductory class there. Even those who are experienced or those who are newbies are welcome at all of the classes I teach. I'm used to teaching all levels, and we work really hard to make sure that nothing is skipped. All right, let's get into stencils. My tumble made it so it's a little uncomfortable for me to stand up and work at an easel, so we're going to be working flat so everybody can see. Nice to see everybody showing up. I'm so excited to have everybody here. I appreciate you all coming. Those who are friends of mine on my personal page saw the bloody hand. So I'm going to be smart, put a glove over it today so that I don't do anything bad to it. I'm going to go progressively. This is probably going to be a fairly long live because we're going to cover a lot of things, and I'm going to try to complete stuff so you see how it all builds up. Stenciling, been around for centuries. All it is an opening cut out so you can apply some kind of colored medium through it and have a pattern happen. but there are levels of stenciling. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to aim you down at my work surface, and I think the first thing I'm going to show is basically a medallion or a one-layer stencil. These can be used, you've seen them, you can put plaster through them. Today I'm just going to do paint because that's what I'm doing. Let me see if I can move this easel back, the tripod back a little bit so you can see everything a little better. And then I'll pull this a little further out. I will close up on some of the smaller details, but right now we're going to do a far shot so you can see the whole thing. I've applied just a tiny bit of spray adhesive to the back. Let's see. I don't use anything special. I mean, this is Scotch Super 77. And all I'm doing literally is like that on it, letting it dry a few minutes and setting it down. If you do more, you will have deposits of glue on your surface, which nobody wants. Or if you put it down while it's still wet, you'll have the same problem. I remember when I first started using this, everybody was like, oh my God, I have glue on my surface. How do I stop that? Well, that's how you stop it. Light spray, let it dry, then apply it. This does not keep your products from bleeding, but what it does do is keep your stencil from shifting and lifting, so you're less likely to have bleeds. So I'm going to take a little paper plate here, and I'm going to do stencil brush. Now on walls, again, if I was doing lots of them, I might take one of these, which is a velour roller, and roll it through paint because it won't grab a lot of paint, and do this. Because then I won't have a lot of bleed. It doesn't grab a lot of materials. Oh, thank you for the nails. I'm about due for a manicure. I'm covered in paint, but that's nothing new. So I have a little bit of Set Coat Neutral White in a cup here. Hi, Maria. Maria Fredericks is my very, very gifted, very, very talented artist cousin. She does a lot of antique book restoring, not just antique, I mean like first edition Bible kind of level. I'm probably describing it poorly, but she goes and does stuff that's ancient, not just antique, ancient. Very gifted, travels all over the world doing this. Hi Kate, nice to see you. All right, so I dipped my paint just slightly in this. I'm not dunking it. You can see how little paint I have on there. And then I'm taking the plate and I'm offloading it and working it into the brush. Why? Because if I put a lot of paint on here, it's just going to seep under everything. And I'm doing this. I'm swirling. You don't take a stencil brush and do this. First of all, it's bad for the brush. Second of all, it hurts your arm. And it's not effective. And you can actually force the bristles under the stencil and ruin your pattern. So it's very little product. I'm using Set Coat because Set Coat stencils very nicely like this. I have plenty of other products that I've used. And all I'm doing is I'm really, 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 really working it in. Takes very little paint. If I put it on like that, I'd have it seeping everywhere. Thanks, Randy. Yeah, no, they bad hand. I bruised the outside of the thumb and I bruised my palm and chopped up my palm, but the inside of my two fingers work just fine, and I can make it work. I'm also holding my stencil brush straight up so that all the bristles are working with me. If I do this, I get like little bristle lines in here. I want it swirled and soft and smudgy. Now again, I can do this with plaster and trowel plaster through, but this is how I can do this with paint on any surface, on furniture, on walls, on floors. And oh yeah, if I had a big wall, I have this thing. This thing is monster. And I have done entire walls with that huge brush. I had really good biceps after doing that. So I'm going to work this whole thing like this. This kind of technique allows a lot of very clean control over your materials and your surface. And the set coat has a really nice opacity to it, and is a little thicker than a lot of other paints. Don't just, I keep saying this, I'm going to repeat this. Don't just dip the brush in the paint and smear it on. You see, I have a little lift right here because I've used this stencil a lot. If I had a really wet product on here, I'd have a big bleed under this. Now let's hope I'm not lying, and when I lift this up, you're gonna see a nice pattern. Wouldn't be the first time I lied for my own work. Goofed myself up. This should be, it's pretty good. This is a well-loved, well-used stencil. For those who are interested in who this stencil is, this is from Jennifer Ferguson. I believe this is the Madrid tile. Don't count on it, but there will be a link posted in all of this at the top when I re-edit. Okay, your earlobes are on fire. Thanks, Martin. I'm wearing fun earrings today. Thank you, Maria. I'm glad to, you know, it's fun to have you here too. I watch you all the time. How do I clean up my stencils? I spray them with crud cutter, or I spray them with, let me see if I've got the crud cutter. I spray them with crud cutter, or I spray them with Faux Effects Easy Clean. Let it sit for a second and wash them off in the sink with green scrubby. That cleans it up really, really well. All right, so we just did a medallion. And as you can see, this is already pretty much dry because I have been really able to keep the paint thin. So I'm going to demonstrate this next one right over it. I said repeat patterns. So this is a repeating pattern, and these things are registration marks. And what happened to the finishing school in Floral Park, New York? I have no idea. Was never part of that, so I can't answer for you. So let's get into this. So I'm going to do it with black so that you can see it easily on top of the light color I just did. Oh, this is what happens when you're sloppy in your studio. You don't close the jars right and things get caked up. So let's work on getting this open. Yes, that little stencil is from Wallovers. This one that I'm working on is from Wallovers, and I love it. It's I have the bigger pattern too, but this is, they do a furniture size. Let me see if I can get this centered so you all can see what I'm doing better. Yeah, this will work. You can actually see this better. I tend to work from this side forward because I'm left-handed, so I don't want to drag my arm through paint. But the way the camera's set up, you'll see it better. These little dots in here are what's called registration marks. Again, I'm going to just dip out of the container, which is, you know, pretty gooey at this point. Before I do, though, where's my paper towel? I am going to offload any extra paint on here onto paper towels. You know, wet, rinse out and wet, and then reuse your stencil brushes, because once they're wet, you have to let them dry. They get mushy, they get too wet, they feed water into the paint, and then it'll all bleed. I had already lightly sprayed this with some designer foil size, some spray adhesive, so this won't budge. I'm going to offload, I'm going to work some of the paint into the brush and make sure I don't have any goo on the sides. And again, I'm doing this. Now, granted, this is not the optimum way for me to do this on fresh paint here. I would usually wait a day to let it all dry. This paint is so thick at the edges that this is almost like a stencil cream, which means it's a thicker paint, so it can go on a little heavier and not bleed. Just around the edges, not in the jar. I just have it all thickened up here. after I get this on. I think I'm going to put the zoom on this so you can see better what I'm doing. And I am getting in all of those little dots down here. Now obviously if I was doing this on a job, I'd have it cleanly taped off because we have dots right close to the edges, and I don't, on a job or a piece of furniture, I wouldn't want my sloppy stenciling that I'm doing now to have edges show up, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Here we go. So you can see this pattern I've stenciled. Let me zoom this a little bit. Give me a sec. See if I can make that do that. All right, so you see these little dots here and here and here. These are what are called registration marks. And what registration marks do is that they help you to place the next stencil over. So I have dots up here. Let me angle the camera just a little bit. Try not to throw it on the floor. And that's not gonna work. I did that badly. All right, let me pull this back then. Zooms and camera angles, one of these days. All right, so I have these little dots here, I have little dots here, I have little dots here, here, and here. So what I need to do, if you look at the stencil, those little dots are actually part of the pattern. So these little dots are part of this blossom here. Get it all lined in correctly. There we go. And then those little dots up there are part of this blossom. So once you get those dots here, see I've got my dots lined up here and I've got my dots lined up here, I can go back in, everything's lined up correctly, tap my stencil down, and go back in and fill in the pattern. Registration marks can also be just little triangles cut out up in the corners. Those are usually a little tougher to work with. I like the ones like this where the registration marks are actually part of the pattern. It's a really neat, clean way to continue your pattern. Hi, Rima. Thank you, Gina. All right. And I keep dabbing off into a little paint, offloading. Yuck, registration marks. Hey, listen, you don't do your registration marks, your patterns aren't nice. Nothing matches up. Trust me. I know. I've done it wrong. Take your time to match your registration marks up correctly. See, I've got to get them up here. I got to make sure I get them up here so I can move the pattern around. And this can be harder on a wall, especially when you're doing something like a plaster, because you have to let things dry so you can move them. When I'm stenciling like this, it's easy. All right, so I have gotten, let's see, I gotta work the pattern here. Give me a second. I always take a minute to figure out how it works. Okay, so here are my little dots here, and there are my little dots right there. These little dots and these little dots all go in the center of these flowers. So then I line them up correctly, I hope, please God, please, because then these dots should line up here and in here. And also the ones over here. Push this back so you can see. And once all your dots line up, and in other stencils, it's not dots, it's swirls or leaf patterns or a petal. It works to allow your pattern to line up correctly. Let's see. It takes, I mean, I do this all the time, and you can see it still took me a second to figure out how the patterns line up, so don't be surprised when you get a new stencil and you look at it like, oh my God, how the hell do I line this up? I've been doing it a long time and it still takes me time to figure it out. I'm going to slide this back just a little bit so I'm not stenciling off the edge of the table. I got to make sure I get all my other little dots filled in so I have complete registration where I need it. And you can see I'm really working dry here. I am just getting as much paint off the brush as I can. Now here's the challenge. With acrylic paints, your paints can start to dry up in the bristles, which is what's happening to me now. So when I switch brushes, I will keep a cup of water on the side. And where did I put my water today? 1 second, I need my water. I hid it on a table in the back here. So once I've gummed up one brush, I just kind of keep a squirt bottle around so that I have water I can pour out as needed. And stick my brush in that. But that brush is done for the day. That brush is completely done because now that it's wet, the moisture has gone all the way up in here. So no matter how well I think I've dried it, the bristles are soft and they'll splay and they'll go under the stencil and the water will come down into your paint and cause bleeding. But now you can see how I'm catching up with the pattern. So over here, I will go in and catch it here. I will catch with these dots, these dots, these dots, and I will lay the pattern down over here. And I would fill in this area. And that works really nicely. How did I zoom in on that? I tapped on my phone and did this to zoom my camera. I always use my phone. I'm sorry. I have not figured out all these other camera ways of doing things, fancy foo-foo things that allow to hook into the live, and I don't have any special microphones. Maybe someday when I, have things to do that don't include paint. All right, so now we're going to move on to multi-layered stencils. I'm pulling up another board. It's primed with Set Coat Gravel Gray, and let me see if I can get the screen to come back up. There we go. So, hi. So, one-layer stencils, while they have their challenges, are relatively easy. It gets more complicated when you start doing multiple layer stencils, which personally I love. We can do I've done stencils that have been 12 and 15 layers. I have a suit of armor from Melanie Royals that I did in my nephew's bedroom many years ago that I still keep, that had to have like 15 layers and different parts and pieces to piece together. I have, I have here in front of me, I have one of the newest stencils from Helen Morris over in England, and of course my picture for it disappeared. It's her foo dog. Where the heck did that picture go? Watch, it's probably buried somewhere here on my desk. It's a foo dog, and it has 5 complete pieces to do it. Screen just froze up. I think it may be freezing on your end because it is not freezing on mine. I'm actually able to see my own broadcast, so sometimes that happens. I also got, Lord, I just keep pulling things out. I have a pheasant or a sparrow. I have a 1-layer pheasant, I have a 2-layer bird, and then I have this 5-layer foo dog, which I adore. But I think for the sake of expediency today, we'll do the 2-layer bird. And Helen's really good because in her stencils, on the bottoms, I'm going to turn it backwards so you can actually see the numbers. She numbers each layer, so you put them down in the correct order, which for somebody who's forgetful like I am is great. So there's that one, that's 2 layers. I also got this gorgeous pheasant from her that you saw in the photographs wrapped in the tissue. So I'm gonna, but I think for the sake of expediency, I'll do the 2-layer bird. And let's see, here's my spray. I have a little spray spot down here that'll, in a box, so that nobody dies when I do this. Make sure I've got the right side that I'm spraying. I'm checking my numbers to make sure that they are correct so that I line them up right. All right, hang on just a sec. Okay. My spray glue is also pretty tired, so it's not spraying much. Let's see if it'll try it again. There we go. I think I actually got something out of the can that time. And I'll just do this and let it, still a little sticky. I think color-wise, we'll do some copper and some metallic champagne from Set Coat, in Set Coats. The colors are going to be beautiful on it. Hey, Jennifer's watching me. Jennifer's usually live when I'm live or preparing for a live herself. Oh, I'm excited. I'm honored she's watching my lives. All right. I'm a little sticky here still. I do this a lot, just flap at things. And I'm turning it sideways. And let me angle down. All right. Fortunately, I have a whole bin of brushes, so when one gets a little gummed up, I can work on another. Let me see if I can get that back a little and pull this back a little so everybody can see everything. So I think we'll start with the copper. Obviously this is a brand new stencil, literally arrived from the UK day before yesterday. So we did the first medallion we did with Jennifer's stencil. The second pattern stencil we did was a small furniture repeat from Wallovers. This one is from Stencil Library in the UK. I'm going to dip, where did my little scrubby plate go? There it is. I have my little plate. I'm going to dip in just a little bit, and then offload. I'll work it into the bristles, but I'm offloading. Now Jennifer is truly like the stencil queen, so she'll yell at me if I teach this wrong. All right, so I'm doing this, again, swirling motions. Now this paint is a lot softer than that black was that was all caked up around the top, so it'll cover faster, but it's a little less opaque. Of course, for a demo, that doesn't matter. And again, I'm just in here swirling it into my brush. If you look at my brush, it almost looks like there's nothing on there except dirty paint. You know, dried up, tired paint, but actually there's a lot in here. Now, also understand, doing some of this does not work on a glossy surface really well. It just smears. You don't get a lot of paint deposit. It's better to work on, at the very least, an eggshell. Now, I just did a dumb thing because I wasn't paying attention, but it's a good teaching tool for you all. Under here, right here, is a little diamond. That's a registration mark. So well, fortunately I didn't actually mess up my pattern because I noticed it as I was doing it. Under these diamonds for multi-layers or under triangles, I try to put a little piece of tape. Why? Because then if I do what I almost did there, which is hit it with paint, I don't ruin it. And actually what I normally do is take a pen and mark that. And then I take another piece of tape, and that bled really, for some reason, that wanted to bleed. That ink wanted to bleed under here. So I'll take a ballpoint pen that I don't have in my reach. Maybe this will work better. Yeah, that works better. So there we go. And I would probably put a piece of tape under on the board or the surface under where the number 1 is, or covering the number 1, so I don't paint the number 1 on my surface accidentally too. Oh, thank you. Jennifer has added me as an affiliate, or I added myself as one of Jennifer's affiliate because I recommend so many of her products that she's making it possible for me to actually be in business with her with it a little bit. So if you order any of these stencils from her that are hers, go through my affiliate link and she'll know where they came from. So again, I'm just putting a little bit of paint going through the pattern, and when paint's soft like this, it's really easy to manipulate on here. Thicker the paint, sometimes the harder it is to get it to work. Plus acrylic paints like this, and Set Coat is an acrylic based paint, dry really fast. So you kind of got to work fast and be prepared that your bristles could dry out. That's why I have like 5 of these. And by the way, these brushes, also my stencil brushes like this with the black handle, they are also from Artistic Painting Studio. I know everybody always asks, where do you get your stencil brushes? And I lifted that up, and I don't think my pattern's quite dense enough where I want it. So I'm gonna go back in with just a touch more paint to make sure I get all those details popping the way I want it to. Now, if you love me, if you enjoy what I do, please share my link, share the links to this video, because I love teaching and I love making sure everybody understands not just what to do, but why you should be doing it. Sometimes the lesson doesn't make any sense until you understand the whys. So please feel free to share. The more we share, the bigger our audiences are, and the more people who understand decorative painting, it helps the industry. Yay! Oh, thank you. You all love me. That's nice to hear. All right, so I'm peeling this back, and let me get the tape that stuck to that. That's layer 1. Now, oftentimes, that's a very thin stencil that I'm working with. I don't always even clean these thin ones because I'm not troweling plaster and I'm not putting heavy paint on it. If it gets too thick, I'll lay it down flat and I'll spray it and wipe it down, but I don't worry about it because I'm not getting a lot of buildup. You can see this is very, very thin. This is like 2 sheets of paper thickness. All right, I'm gonna go into my bucket and spray a little adhesive here. Come on. Oh, my spray adhesive is kind of gummed up. Gotta love it when it does that. There we go. Come on. Come on. You can do it. Maybe you can't. Ooh. It is absolutely spraying nothing. I think I might have gotten the last little bit out of that can and I'm throwing it out. All right, so we're gonna have to hope that I'm really good at keeping this from shifting around, and I'll use some more tape. So I'm matching up these corner diamond holes right there. I'm gonna match it here, up in one corner, and down here where the other one is, and make sure that everything lines up nice and neat with the pattern so things don't overlap weirdly. And looking at it, I got it pretty well. I might have gotten a little spray adhesive on there. It seems to be a little sticky. Either that or I had a leftover residue from the other one, because I wasn't trying very hard to not have residue here. Come on, more. You can get the lid on straight. Hi, Cynthia. Oh, lick it. Thanks, Tina. That's what I needed to do, is lick the stencil. Okay, this is matte metallic champagne set coat. And as you can tell, I spray in my studio, so I actually just sprayed it with a couple of shades of set coat, doing some sample boards. But the color is kind of a metallic, almost a warm silver, but not quite. And I'm going to use the same brush I used before, so I'm going to offload any extra paint onto my paper towel. And there's not that much there, but I want to get off as much as possible. And I'm not banging on it, I am scrubbing it. Same swirling motions that I was doing to get it on the board is how you get it off. And let's see, I got a little paint sitting up here at the top of this, and I'll just go in here and offload. I may get a little bit of the copper color because of the way I'm doing it, which is sloppy, but it's demo time. So I'm going to swirl, swirl, swirl. Yeah, I'm getting a little orange coming off of here. I'll offload this. I'll get some of the copper color out. And I think I actually may have to pour a little onto the plate. You see how much I poured on there? It's about the size of a dime. It's about all I'm going to need, probably more than I need. So I'm pouncing my brush in gently, swirling it to work it in. And here we go. Yeah, there we go. Now I have a gray background here. The gray background is gravel gray set coat. Anybody interested in where you purchase it? I always purchase my Faux Effects products through the Faux Marketplace, www.fauxmarketplace.com. Quite frankly, it gets to me in a day. If you're in the Midwest shipping zone, Louisville, Kentucky is the UPS hub, so it gets to me in a day. I don't waste my time and my gas going and buying it somewhere else. And I often have it delivered, set it up so that my delivery shows up at my job site, so I don't even have to carry it with me to a job if I need it on a job site. All right, I am kind of swirling, swirling, swirling. Now, oftentimes, if I find that I don't have enough opacity, I'll let it dry for a second, you know, fan it, blow it, hit it with a hairdryer, whatever, and then go back and lightly fill in more. I don't go in hard because this is an acrylic paint. So if I go in hard, I'm just going to scratch it all back up. But if I go in lightly, I just get a little more color in right there. Like, that's perfect. That's what I want to do. And get a little extra color. Tried to pick a couple colors that contrasted pretty well so that you could see the design. Remember, everything I teach you today with stencils, it's a leap-off point. I have a million ways to work with a stencil. I'm teaching you all the basics, and then we'll get into good old-fashioned theorem stenciling, which I know some of you don't know what that is. I'm just dipping all the extra paint off the edge of the can or the jar so that I can get the last little bit on here to fill it in. All right, so I filled that in. This brush going in the bucket because I'm done with that. Close this up. I would have loved to do the foo dog, but that's a lot of layers, and I don't know how many times you can all sit through me doing layer upon layer upon layer. It's not always the most exciting thing to watch. So, pull this back, and look at that. Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, I love this pattern. I loved it when I bought it. I love it more that I've even tried it. Let's see. Look at those flowers and that detail, and no bleed because of the careful way I've done that. Look how beautiful that is. Oh, I'm so pleased. Now that's just a 2-layer. Now imagine how complex it gets the more layers you add. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I've done some very, very complex stencils. Now I'm setting those down. I'm going to put another board up here, but I'm not actually using it. Just because it'll help you all see what I'm doing. That plate goes away. And this plate comes out. And here we go. You see I have a little canvas board here. That stencil, another reminder, that stencil I just did was from Helen Morris at the Stenciled Garden. It's one of her, I think it's a pheasant stencil. She has some beautiful 1-layer, 2-layer, and you know, a 1,000,000-layer stencils. And I am a stencil junkie. I freely admit it. Okay, theorem stenciling. For those who are not familiar with it, I'll show you the picture on here. Theorem stenciling is placing stencils and doing all the shading and coloring while the stencil is in place. You can do this with acrylics. Tilt you up so you're looking at me. You can do this with acrylics. It's hard though, because acrylics dry so fast, you don't get a chance to blend really well. I was taught this by Carol Van Grena, who is since retired. She cuts beautiful stencils. Sometimes you can still find her stencils online, like on her Etsy shop or sometimes on her eBay store. But normally traditionally it's done on felt, but really what it is, or velvet, but what you need is a textured surface. So this has got a little gesso on the canvas here. Stencil library, yes, no, I have another stencil I use from Stencil Garden. Yes, you're right, Kate, not stenciled library for the pheasant, stenciled, sorry, I'm getting it wrong. Stenciled library for the pheasant, Stenciled Garden, or Artistic Painting Studio for the medallion stencil, I think it was the Madrid tile. I will put all the links in the post, at the top of the post. Once this is over, I'll edit it and do that. So everybody will have the links to everything, including iDoll, including my classes, all of that stuff. So if you look at these stencils, they are fairly complete on their own. But what you're going to do is come in and color each one. And usually when you get these, if you don't have them numbered, you number them. I think I numbered these myself. So, oh, thanks, Kate. Yes, it does look amazing in metallics. These you never spray. You don't spray these little theorem stencils because you don't want any adhesive to come off or to pull any fibers up in any way. So, the style that I'm doing is called theorem stenciling. T-H-E-O-R-E-M. It is a very old style of stenciling where you're completing all the colors in the stencil before you move it and apply the next layer. I used to do this a lot. So hopefully I can remember how to do it on this because I haven't done this stencil in a while. I don't do these in acrylics. I use good old-fashioned, where is it? Shiva oil paint sticks. And I use much smaller stencil brushes. So I haven't looked at the directions. I'm gonna play with this and do it the way I feel like doing it. So it may come out great, it may come out horrifying. I can't promise you what it's going to look like because I haven't used these in a while. So I gotta pull out my colors. These things are oil paint. which means that after you've opened them the first time, they develop a skin on them, and you have to take a razor blade, cut off the top, and sort of peel off the skin until you get to the good paint below. Right? Just like this. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've had these things for over 20 years, and they're still good. Obviously, because of my work, I don't do a ton of theorem stenciling. These were for special projects. Let's get them off of here. All the little bits in one spot. And what you do is you take a little color. All right, let me aim this down so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm gonna try to zoom in so that you can see it. All right. I'm looking at my screen so that it tells me whether I'm close enough for you actually to read what I'm doing, and I am. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little of this and just smear a little bit, just that much. And then I'm going to take some of my smaller stencil brushes, and these are all Lowell Cornell. I think that's what these are. I don't know, I've painted over it with them so many times I've kind of smushed the name off of it. Let me see if I can, yeah, Lowell Cornell. And I have a bunch of different sizes in these smaller ones. I just got to dig them all out so I can find them. And these are specifically for this kind of work. So this color that I started with here is yellow ochre. And when I'm done, I'm putting it back in. I will unbury the cap from wherever it is. And I'm taking, you know, a pretty small brush. I am, oh, there's the cap. It's under the plate. No wonder I couldn't find it. Jeez, I'm so bright some days. And I'm working it in to my brush. Now, if I'm worried about having too much paint on here, I'm going to offload on my paper. But really on this canvas, this is gesso, not fabric, so I'm not worried. And I tend to like my colors a little darker. So I'm going to work this on here. In one spot. I probably should have pulled a couple colors out all at once. You can see all of my Shiva sticks look, you know, smushed on the end. And I just peel them off. Cut that down. Get a little more here. I didn't peel this off as well, so I had to put a little more work into getting it out. What colors are best to get? Whatever colors you want. I mean, if I'm doing, a lot of this stuff goes back to organic shapes and things, so I get colors that kind of work in nature. So, you know, I'll have a lot of greens, and then I'll also have a lot of yellows and natural reds and oranges, although they don't always look that natural when you're kind of smearing them out, because that is a pretty damn bright orange. But it won't look that bright by the time you're done. And I think maybe, ooh, this is one I had that I didn't open. Well, in that case, let's open it. Oh, it's like a Christmas present. I got it, I put it away. Oh, here's a better one. Here's a better one that I wanted. This is sort of, it says it's copper, but it's a really red copper. Now this is a little like doing veriglamase. It requires time, it requires patience. I personally find this really, really soothing to do. It takes my head out of my everyday stuff and forces me to slow down. Which is really good. I find it very calming. Oh, that still needs to be cut, even though it looked like it was gonna just come off. really nice copper. It's not super bright orange. And like I said, I just put them right back in the tubes because tubes help keep them fresh, but these things last for years. No exaggeration, some of these are 20 years old, and I just opened one of them. That yellow ochre's been around forever. All right, so I'm gonna take some of this orange. I'm letting it blend into the ochre on my brush because I wanna soften it a little bit. And I'm kind of going in and blending. And because it's oils, it'll blend really easily together. And you get a little bit of nice ombre effect going. And that in itself is really pretty. So I've got that nice two-tone look. But this is, you can get really fancy. And you can see I'm sort of offloading my brush here, push things out, move things around. I'm offloading. I gotta see where I'm watching myself. It's hard sometimes to see where everything is. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this bright red and I'm gonna hit the tips here. And it because of the way this works between the texture and the oils, it does a really nice soft fade into the colors. So you can see how pretty this is fading into this. And then I'm gonna take more red, and these are little, you know, seed pods. And I'm gonna go dark red here. And maybe I wanna pull a little more orange into this here. And you can build up your colors however you like. And I'm gonna take a little bit of that copper, I think, and copper tip that. There, the little seed pods. And maybe I'll copper tip some of the leaves. Leaf ends here. So I'm gonna pull that. And look how beautiful that fade is right there. All that softness in there. But here's the other thing. Now there's tools, but I usually just use my stencil because I don't have that little thing for the lines. So I'm gonna take a really, really small stencil brush. I'm gonna dip into this copper, and then I'm gonna work to make some lines that work for how the leaves have little stems. This is not going to be perfect because I actually had a tool to do this, and I lost it. Like I said, I haven't used these for a long time, so I'm just going to do this. And see there, you sort of get that little bit of shading that shows where the rib of the leaf is. Again, I have tools to do this, and as you can see, I just sort of smudged that a little by playing with it. So I'm not going to do too much of this. I don't want to, I'd like to try not to completely destroy this, since I haven't done it in a while, but I'll go in. I'm not going to do it because I'm going to get that wrong. All right, here is number 2. So I wrote it on there, number 2. And let's see, did I mark my registration marks? Of course I didn't. So let me put my stencil back down. Oh, I can see why I didn't mark my registration marks, because there's not a whole lot of room to do it. I have a canvas that's smaller than my stencils. So here's a piece of tape. Little tiny piece of tape. And the registration marks are teeny tiny right here and in the other corner. So there we go. Where did my little Sharpie go? All right, I've marked my corner. Take that off. Let's see if I can line it up. I'm pretty good at lining up stencils, so, you know, everybody say a little prayer. Sarah, thank you. Isn't it gorgeous when you get to do that? When it works just right. This is best on fabric, although I gotta tell you, I have done a lot of very similar stuff with acrylic paints on walls. That big pheasant, I could have toned all those feathers. I could have separated the beak out so I had different colors. It's not that hard to do. Again, this is just a jump off point. All right, now I've got to make sure I've got this placed right because I shouldn't have things the way they are. All right, that should sit like that. That should sit like that. So this little peak here with this leaf and this little break should cover parts of the other layer. Sometimes I don't find that on these the registrations match up as well as if I match them up by hand. So I've done this one in yellows. I may take a more orange attack on this one, and because I'm playing with old paints, I may need more paint. I'll go back in here with a little more. But it does not, I'm trying to put the cap on a thing that, while the tube is still in my hand. I am so gifted some days. So I'm going to take more orange here, and I'm going to make most of this orange. And then I'm going to go back into this red, which I will probably need to get more of, and make this a more orange leaf. Oops, wrong color. Now, if I want to, I can even add a little black or a little brown. Let's see, where's my brown? What color is that? Burnt umber. All right, here's some burnt umber. There's my razor blade. You can use this with an X-Acto knife or a razor blade or anything you want. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to try to put the cap on the paint stick before I put it back in the tube. Sometimes my mother would be so proud of me. I'm going to take a little, very tiny stencil brush, go into the burnt umber, hit the edges of these leaves. And then if I had a little edge piece, which I don't have, I don't know where I put it, I would go in and I would use maybe the burnt umber to put in some of the veins and just sort of gently shade the veins. And you can see how it is right there. That's where the veins are, these lines here. There are tools to do that. I don't have it. Would you only use these oil sticks? I could use stenciling creams, anything that had longer open time than a standard acrylic paint. I think Melanie Royals used to make a stenciling cream, so it had some open time. The idea is that you want something that stays so you can blend a little. When I do this with acrylics, it's more like I'm putting light layers on top of each other. So let me see if I can, that's may or may not work. I don't have anything with a little tiny bit of a rounded edge, do I? Oh, maybe I do. Give me just a second. Let's see if I can make a lid container work. That might work. So I'm going to take a little bit of this brown and I'm going to go heaviest right there and then sort of fade it out a little bit. Did that work? Yeah, it worked. So you can see I've got this little tiny line here, and then I'll just put a little brown in here, and then I could do, let's see if I can get, I can't promise this is going to look as pretty with my lines as like the original picture, because I simply just don't have that tool. They make sort of an amorphous shaped thing that has all these different curves. You can see there's a little line there, and maybe I think I need to go that way. And do that. And it doesn't have to be brown. I can also take, you know, some of this copper and add that in here and build up that color right there. Get some of that off. It's a little heavy colored. Yeah, that built up a little. I don't like that color right there at all. It got a little icky heavy there. Let's go back in with some red. Blend that out a little. But you see what I'm getting at. Because then now you can get the ribs of the leaves in. And then I also have that to do up here. So what I'll probably do is go in here with a little brown. And maybe I'll take a little of this yellow in here and get the bottom of that and blend it up. And all I have to do to get the color off of my brush, I'm kind of leaving the colors on because I like the way they blend, but if I want a clean color on my brush, I'm doing this. I'm just scrubbing to get all of the paint off of there until it comes out clean. So I'll pull that out, and you can see I have a really pretty pattern. And then there is a final part to this. And let's see, get my pieces of tape off on here. And this is just the connecting branches. And let's see, let's start with my correct spots and then see how I have to line it up to make it actually fit right. Like I said, I'm kind of used to this stencil. I've done it any number of times. Sometimes it doesn't quite line up the way it's supposed to. There we go, I got it right. I had to get it to the center of each of these leaves and then make sure that this overlaid the other. All right, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. I have to think here. Oh, that tells you how old this brush is. I just had the paint on the back of it peel right off. Let me get the branches here. And I can make them heavier and darker in one spot and then fade them to light here. Or I can make them darker. I can add a little red to it if I want to make it a little warmer into this color scheme. Let's see, let's do the last of this in copper, just so it pops a little differently. And then I'll offload that, go back into this, get my little branch here, and I'll take a little brown here so that the copper's not quite so blingy bright and it has a little more organic feel to it. So, and this is theorem stenciling. Now you can see all the layers. Let me see if I can even zoom in a little closer. And pull that up for you. Now you can see this is what theorem, I'm going to sit down because I'm going to make myself dizzy looking at it. This is theorem stenciling. You're blending all the colors in each layer as you go. It's really beautiful. It's an old technique. This is often done on fabrics. I have done it on walls. If I'm going to do it on walls, I'm trying to think of, I never do it over anything shinier than an eggshell because the walls are going to have a little texture. I don't do oil sticks on walls. I do, there are some acrylic stencil creams. I don't know who makes them anymore because usually I just use like set coat. Let me get the glove off my hand and put you back up so I'm talking to you instead of talking. Whoa, that's awfully big. There we go. Now you're looking at me as a normal person. Quiet mode went on. That's okay. Thank you everybody who loves this. This is, some people like little fussy things. Some people like fast. I like both. I like going back and forth because sometimes I need a lot done fast. Sometimes I just need to zen out. Usually when I do this, it's on furniture. But I have done sort of mural style stencilings in this manner with acrylic paints on walls. You can get bigger stencils. So I think, Oh, you missed it? You didn't see it? Yes, we used to do. You missed it? Oh, you missed it. Okay, sorry. I thought she said she missed the picture of what I did. Yeah, it's very time consuming, and as a business thing, you have to take into account the amount of time it will take to do this. Now on walls, I'll do it faster because I have to. I'm working with acrylic products. But when I'm doing it on a piece of furniture and doing something, I'll take the time, and I charge for it. But it's a wonderful, wonderful option. So now you've seen a medallion, you've seen repeating patterns, you've seen multi-layers, and you've learned theorem stenciling. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Again, share the love, keep me moving around the internet, keep my face on Facebook. By the way, for those of you who are still watching, and there's only a few of you still left because it's a long live and not everybody's into all of this, there's going to be a very big announcement coming soon about my business, and it's very, very exciting. So, I would say in the next couple of days, I'm going to have some really interesting news for everybody, and I hope you all like it. All right, I'm watching everybody's comments come through. If I've missed your questions or anything, I will go back through this feed. I will answer your questions. I will also post the links to everything that I have here. Quite frankly, I'm not even sure who does these little theorem stencils anymore other than the ones I can find from Carol Van Grena online. Anyway, have a great week, everybody. I'm going to go take my hand and go sit quietly and veg out for the rest of the day for it. I'm very glad it worked out that I could do this, and I'll talk to you all later. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.